Welcome, everybody, to the Friar Talk podcast. Today, we're going to be recapping the Brewers series. Then we're going to preview the Astros series a little bit. And then finally, we're going to talk about the pitching rotation because there's a lot of things going on in that department. But let's get started with this Brewers series. Isaac, what was just your overall thoughts on this series, and how did you think the Padres performed?
I thought it was a pretty good series. We were able to put up a lot of runs. I feel like, Manny was out for most of the series. We were kind of having some depth issues. No Manny. Will was struggling at the plate. So overall, I'm pretty happy with this series, how it went. I know we only split the series. We expected to go 3-1, but nothing to be mad about. Splitting the series is perfectly fine, especially considering how hot we've been the past. The past really ever since that last Dodger series, we've been a hot baseball team. I would argue we've been the best baseball team. So it's still really good to see that we're at least we're not losing the series. And I definitely expect that these next couple games against, the Mets, the Cubs, like a handful of good baseball teams we're going to be playing. And I think that's where we're going to see, we're going to be testing the depth, and we're really going to be seeing if this Padres team is for real, which I think we all know they are. But, hopefully everyone gets to see that. And I think that's what they're going to do. And especially considering we haven't had Manny, second best player, I'm perfectly fine with splitting the series.
Yeah, even then, we only split the series with the last two games. We did win the third game, but this last game, they walked it off in extras in the 10th. And you know what? It was a really close game all the way up until then. So can't really complain. They Brewers thing to do to win. And you know what? Happy for them. They won. The pitching was pretty good. Really wanted to see Ryan Weathers get stretched out to 5 innings, but with the arms that what has happened in the past and sort of happening now, it's okay for him, to get pulled in the fourth. Maybe you don't send shit. That's just, you might have a better option on the bench than him, but that's probably my only nitpick for the game. But really want to see some of these starters go longer. Snell needs to go more than 5, because when you start to look at the innings pitched by the starters and the relievers, it's really, really close, and it's not fun to look at.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a big area of concern right now. It's just like, all right, how many innings is this bullpen gonna be able to handle? Pretty much, that's just been like one of the big things. And I think we were looking at it. What was it like? It was under like 50 innings. I want to say is the difference. And that was like a couple days ago. I saw someone tweeted that out where it was a chart, and it was like 280 from the starters and like I want to say like 230 from the relievers, something around that. And it's just like it's really close. I think it's one of the closest in the league, and you just haven't had many guys go that long. And kind of looking back on the series, I do want to bring this up real quick. I thought this was one of the best series of the whole season. 2 extra inning games, one game where Jake Cronenworth makes an amazing play in the top of the 10th, and the Brewers won today. And you know what? They won on a sweet walk-off where a guy smoked the ball like over the – was it Will? Was Will that was in right field? Yeah, I think it was Will in right field. So, smokes it over Will, and it's just like, hey, you got to give them props for that. They had a great win, and this series was back and forth, and a lot of the games were really close. The Wednesday game, 2-1, that game was close the whole time, and it looked like the Padres were going to lose when Austin Adams came in, and then he kind of clutched out the series. So overall, I thought this was a great series, but kind of going back to the pitching stuff, I think it's a big area of concern. And you look at earlier in this series, Joe Musgrove, he only goes 4 2/3. He even came out and said like, "Hey, I thought it was a good move by the coaching staff to pull me. My command was slipping, and I don't know if I would have got out of that inning, and it definitely worked." Then today you see the Padres kind of take the approach of, "Hey, we're not gonna let Ryan Weathers go out there for a long time," which is fine, especially with his arm not being that great. But then you go to Nabil and Stammen, and they don't do that great. I know that you had the Tatis double air that really affected things, but it definitely affected the game and on Thursday's game. But I mean, it's May. That's the thing. So if they're trying to help like keep these arms healthy and ready to go come playoff time, totally get it. And I'm not gonna be upset over them, not wanting these guys to stretch out too much. But when it comes down to later in the year, there is a question of like how much can the bullpen handle. And we've already seen a couple guys go down early, so I don't know if that's affecting it. I don't know what that is, but definitely something to, I guess, keep an eye on. But going on to the bats, who stood out to you just hitting wise, Isaac?
Eric Hosmer had a pretty good series, I would say. Oh, surprise, surprise. Tommy Pham. I completely forgot that he did really good. He actually had a really good series. He played really good defense. He was good on the base path. He was good at the plate. Um, I don't know what his batting average before this series was, but it's at 203 right now, and he's getting on at a really high rate. And that's really good to see, especially considering he's been batting leadoff recently. And it's funny, I say surprise, surprise, because we've been bashing Tommy Pham for a little while. And I mean, I think we all have as a Padres fan base, because the guys, throughout our lineup, he's been that one guy where, like, okay, bases loaded or runners on second and third, 2 outs. Who's coming up? Oh no, it's Tommy Pham, right? And then the inning's over. Whether it's a 1 out, inning-ending double play, or just a sac fly to the warning track, whatever it is from Tommy Pham, it probably happened. But this series, he came around, and I mean, we can only hope that he turns it around. So definitely, I think the one guy that all Padres fans think, wow, that was a good series, is Tommy Pham.
I thought Profar did pretty well this series. I remember that one he belted like a double down the line, then he had another single to lead off an inning. So I just remember him like being really clutch for one game. I'm trying to remember from the rest of the series, but I'm pretty sure he did all right. I know he walked today. He didn't do too much today, but I'm pretty sure for the rest of the series he hit pretty well. Profar is just one of those guys, he's a tough at bat. Once he gets on base, he can steal, which, my God, the Padres ran wild this series, and I'm really happy to see that. It was one of the reasons we won against Corbin Burns. It's just because, hey, we ran wild and we kind of forced plays. That whole Kim steal second and Caratini stealing home. Love it. But yeah, I thought Profar did pretty well this series.
Yeah, I definitely think Profar had a great series, and Pham as well. And you kind of talk about that. Hey, the Padres ran wild this series. The double steal was amazing. That was such a sweet play. Awesome that Caratini's the guy that comes in at home too. Love to see the aggressiveness on the base pass. I know today they got Pham. I don't know if he was going to third, but they got him like in between second and third on a pickoff. But still, Pham had an excellent series. Probably these last like 2 or 3 series have been just his best stretch of baseball. So, I mean, hopefully he's turning it around. We didn't talk about a certain pitcher that's been turning around, so we'll get into him in a second as well. But I think the other guys that kind of mentioned, Eric Hosmer, a couple big hits, but most of his impact was on Thursday. And then Profar, of course, just being great at the top of the lineup. I think the top of the lineup, they did a really good job of, like, the Padres didn't really get a ton of like big hits this series, but they scored a good amount of runs every game. I think they had, was it 2, 7, 3, and 5, I want to say was overall the game. So, I mean, pretty solid amount of runs scored. And you're going into good pitching staff. Like we were talking about earlier in the year where the situational hitting wasn't there. It was definitely there this series, and it's been there for the last few weeks. And I think that's been the difference in them winning a lot of games, because you kind of look at this, I guess not winning streak, but this stretch of winning a lot of ball games in like the last 15 or 16 games. I think they've won 13 out of the last 16, I want to say. And so many times it's a couple like 1 or 2 run game, or it's a 1 and 2 run game until the 8th or 9th inning where they kind of pull away. And it's just like, hey, how did they score? Oh, a guy scored on a wild pitch and a guy got sacrificed twice, and then someone hit a single. Like, it's just been consistent batting. Another guy to bring up real quick, Clutchatini, big hit in the extra inning game, so got to shout him out. But I think for this final part of the recap, I think that we should talk about Chris Paddock a little bit. And Isaac, I'll let you lead it off on him, just because that's been your guy, and he's starting to look really good recently. So, what's your thoughts on him?
I don't even know what my thoughts on him are. I mean, whatever he did during that stint on the IL, keep doing it, because this dude, I think he got taken out after the 6th. He went 6 strong against Milwaukee, the only guy that went deep. We all know him, Eric Lauer. What a surprise, right? The one guy that got a big hit off him was Eric Lauer. But he came out of that game with only like 67 pitches, if I remember correctly, maybe a little more. But he had a really low pitch count, so he was doing really good in terms of pitching to contact. He didn't have a high strikeout rate, but with Chris Paddock only having now 3 pitches, because he's starting to throw that curveball a lot more, we're starting to see a better version of Chris Paddock, and he'll probably never be the ace that we thought. But we don't need him to be the ace that we thought he was going to be. He's going to do perfect as a, right now he's a number 4 starter. So if he keeps this up as a number 4 starter, what a great turnaround. What a great thing that would be for the Padres, because we all had really high hopes for him. The Padres as an organization had really high hopes for him. And, he's exuding confidence right now. And I think it's really good to see that Chris Paddock is finally starting to turn it around. Hopefully we see it through the rest of the season. But I think something else I wanted to bring up before Chase talks about Chris Paddock. We did put up a lot of runs, but we also didn't have a lot of big-time hits like Matt said. And High Heat Stats came out with a stat that says the Padres are by far the best base running team so far in 2021. They've made only 6 out on the base paths, fewest in baseball. And they've all been at third base or home. So they're being really aggressive on the base paths. And they have the highest rate of taking the extra base at 48%, and the average is 40. So, this base running is doing wonders for this team right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. The other thing I love is Chris Paddock's curveball. He's using it more. I just remember that one sequence. AJ Casteval, I think, tweeted about it, or was one of those guys. Chris Paddock threw 3 curveballs in a row. One was a first pitch strike, the other one was a weak ground ball, and then the other one was another strike, like a first pitch strike. And none of them really swung at it except for the ground ball. They just kind of just watched it go by, and that sets his other pitches so much more than when he would just be like, okay, cool, he threw a fastball. Chances are he's going to throw the changeup. It plays his changeup well. His fastballs now has more life to it. His command is a lot better. That stint off the IL, when he just came off, he's been exuding confidence. He's using his pitches better. He's hitting his spots. So I don't know what he went on the IL for and why he came back, or why he went on the IL. But whatever he did, it's definitely working. And I definitely want to see more of his curveballs, because you know what? If he continues to do this, we might have the best 4 starter in baseball if he continues this trend.
I like that you bring up the curveball, because I don't know if you saw his comments on it, but he said hey, my curveball was better than my changeup today. At least it felt that way. And I don't know if you guys remember that much, or if anyone listening remembers, but in the offseason before the year started, we were talking about Paddock being a really big guy to determine how great the Padres season can be. And, if he's able to be that 5th starter, that can mean so much. And that was before the Ryan Weathers hype really started taking off, and he became now he's in the rotation, but before it was that for Ryan Weathers. And so he was probably going to be, that 4th guy or 5th guy, sorry. And a lot of pressure coming off that big wild card game and stuff. And one of the discussions we had was, what does Paddock need to do to be successful? And we were kind of torn on, does he need to develop that curveball, or does he need to improve that fastball and bounce back to that 2019 Paddock fastball where it's not fluctuating in velocity and stuff like that, and he's able to locate it. And he's done both of those things in these last 3 starts since he's been back. So maybe the answer was, hey, he's got to figure them both out. But if he does figure them both out, he can be a dominant pitcher. And I don't know what it is since he's been back, but he looks so much better and on so many different levels. Not just his stuff, just his mentality. Especially his composure when a guy leads off the inning with a double. I want to say it was early in the game. Someone got on second, or someone got in scoring position, and this might not have been in the Brewers series. It might be the last time he pitched before that. But he went down 1, 2, 3, and the guy didn't end up scoring. I think someone popped up and he struck out a guy, and then someone grounded out or something like that. But it was just hey, he didn't completely fall apart right when a guy got in scoring position, because early on in the year, he would go 3 scoreless innings, and then that 4th inning would come around and get an out, get a second out, and then a guy would hit a double, and it's uh-oh. And then there'd be 5 consecutive hits, and then, you got to pull Paddock. But it just hasn't been like that, and he's looked really, really good. So shout out Chris Paddock for balling out this series. I think he's done a tremendous job. I think that's going to do it for this segment then. So, and if this is your first time checking out our channel, make sure to subscribe. And later today, we're going to have an episode out on that Astros preview.